There are some things that you should never just jump right into, like Season 4 of Vampire Diaries or the Japanese thrashcore scene. But guitar solos are meant to be jumped into, and we're going to talk today a little bit about how you can go from playing open chords to jumping into more of a lead part, and specifically like a minor pentatonic or a minor scale lead part, right? So we're going to do something in the key of D. So we're going to take 3 chords from the key of D, which is just going to be D major, A major, and G major, and find out how we can get into the minor pentatonic spot, how we can kind of like fluidly get into there instead of just going from chords to solo, right? I think especially when maybe you're playing solo or maybe playing with one other person and not in the context of a band, it's good to kind of connect these things together to kind of make like a fluid type thing, right? So again, the reason we're going to the B minor pentatonic scale, the B minor scale, is because it is the 6th note in the key of D, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, and that is where the minor pentatonic or the minor scale exists, right? So again, we need to go from this open position of a D to an A to a G twice into the pentatonic scale here, which is going to be 7, 10, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 10, 7, 10, right? So we're going from here to here. And how are we going to connect these? And specifically, I want to connect it to this note right here, which is the 7th fret on the G string, which happens to be a D, because we're in the key of D. So a good place to start off a solo, that doesn't mean you have to start a solo here or a lead playing thing here, but a good place to start thinking about it is on the tonic, or the root note of the key that you're in, right? So we're going to start off with this progression here. D, which is the 1 to the 5 to the 4, all right? And instead of just doing that and then going right into the pentatonic scale, we're going to connect these together doing 2 different things. And the first way we're going to do it is we're going to link an arpeggio into that scale that a lot of people are familiar with. And you can do this with any kind of scale. Like if you'd rather go into major pentatonic or the major scale, we can do the exact same thing. But we're going to take our ending point of this progression, right? So D to A to G. And we're going to use this G note as our root note, and we're going to make a 4-note arpeggio that we're going to repeat, that's going to lead us into that note, the D, right? D being the 5th of G. You don't even have to remember that. You can just remember the shape, right? So the shape is going to be root note here on this G. We're going to go to the 5th fret, to the 7th fret, down a string to the 5th fret, right? So we've got a G, A, B, D, right? And then now we can go down a string. This is an octave G, and we can do the same thing. So I've got one kind of arpeggio scale, however you want to see it move, repeated into an octave that leads you right into that tonic part of the minor pentatonic shape. So we'd have a D to an A to a G. And that kind of connects your chord playing into maybe lead playing or whatever kind of like lick you'd want to do in the pentatonic shape. Now, you don't even have to take a solo here. This could just be a way to make your rhythm playing more interesting, just to kind of like open up the fretboard a little bit, right? So we can connect these 2 concepts with one arpeggio through 2 octaves into maybe the place that you're going for. Or another way to do it is just to use maybe alternative chord voicings to kind of work your way into that spot. So what I mean by that is we've got this D chord right here, really popular shape. Now, another shape you probably already know is a D minor chord. Now, so since D is the 1 chord in the key of D, the 2 chord would be an E minor. But instead of playing this E minor, we're going to play like a D minor shape, but up 2 frets higher to make an E minor right here. And since the 3 chord in D is also a minor chord, we're going to go up another 2 frets to make F sharp minor, and then we're going to finish back in that same spot, right? So we can go from a D to a E minor to a F sharp minor there, and we're kind of leading into, you can think of this as actually just like a bar chord voicing here, or just kind of getting into the top of that pentatonic shape. It doesn't matter how you think of it, it's just good to kind of know a couple different ways to get through it, right? So we've got a D major chord to A to G and then you're kind of just into that same spot, right? So again, one more time, I'm just gonna go D major, E minor, F sharp minor, into D, right? So I'm using chord voicings to kind of link together and just try to make a more fluid way instead of just going from a chord right into a scale. I think kind of once we start combining chords and scales and arpeggios and just like knowing the notes and stuff like that, you might find that you'll find a more fluid playing style developing in what you do, right? So one more time, we've got the D major to A to G to the arpeggio, or D, A to G to the chords, right? So you can think of chord voicings, you can think of arpeggios, you think of scales. I think really it's just a really valuable way of learning the entire fretboard and then being able to jump into something that you're more familiar with. Now you can do this in any key, and the nice thing about maybe like the arpeggio run especially is this particular run will lead you right into the tonic of the minor pentatonic. Anytime you start it on the 4 chord, right? So since D, E, F sharp, G, G is the 4 of D, that'll always run you into the root note of the key you're in, right? So let's take a different key. Let's take like the key of E or something like that, where we've got an A. So if we start on an A and we kind of do that same thing, where do we end up with? We end up on an E, which is the root note, right? So it's just kind of like, these things will eventually become second nature and your ears will be able to lead you there, but it's just kind of good to know a couple different tips of like how arpeggios can lead you into a particular part of a key, and hopefully eventually you will start to feel less lost working your way through the fretboard.